without further ado, let's get into this drag race news about Miss Aja, who has been speaking out a lot. And you know what? I'm living for all the stuff that she's been saying as of late, including how she said that she was unfollowed by thousands of people when she came out as a trans woman. And the one thing I like about Aja, I I've always liked Aja, and I see that the House of Aja is about to go on tour. So I did see that she made that announcement on her IG or whatever. So yeah, it's her, Candy Muse, um, and I'm like, who else is a part of the House of Aja? You know, all the girls about to go out with her. Tsunami Muse and all of them, they're all about to go out. So yeah, she went on social media. She was about a lot of people unfollow her for coming out as trans, but you could definitely see like on the show that she seems like she's always seemed assured, like sure of herself, but she seems more self-assured now. Like you could definitely see that she's coming to her own. She's very the confidence is oozing through her, and you could definitely see that on on the show. And I was a little worried, although my top three that I picked from the beginning who was going to make it to the semifinals actually ended up being the top three because I was like, these are the stronger girls anyway. So I'm sure y'all probably saw by now that on the new season of Drag Race All Stars 10, we have Irene the Alien moving forward, we have Bosco moving forward, and we have Aja moving forward. And Aja was the one that everybody was kind of on the fence about because, yeah, they started divvying out all these points. I was definitely pissed at the way Olivia Lux was playing the game, but she finally came to her senses, even though Aja was in her feelings, and rightfully so, where she voted against her and gave her point to Deja. And Deja gave her point to freaking Crystal, gave it to Olivia, and then Olivia was like, I'm gonna give my point to Aja. And then it was all down to I was around Phoenix. I almost call her the Phoenix. Do Phoenix was the final girl that had to give her point, and she gave her point to Aja. I was like, bitch, you better give it to her. And well deserved, it went to Aja because you know what? She was the stronger girl out of the others. Like Olivia was just being too pretty. She wasn't really giving. I don't feel that. I mean, Phoenix is an icon. She's definitely a legend within the drag world. But as far as drag race goes, she ain't really been standing out in regards of like what needs to be done in regards of the challenges. I particularly care for this week's challenge. I already told you I don't particularly like the makeover episodes. It just felt like y'all was just making up a bunch of damn bull daggers. I mean, I'm stereotyping because not all basketball players are lesbians, but y'all was giving me lesbian teas with a lot of how a lot of these aggressive girls was looking. But the drag was dragging. I was living for some of the looks and everything, but everything leading up to that, I'm like, okay, I'm so bored with this episode. But I did like the final 5 minutes was where it really set it off for me, which is why I'm not really doing much of a recap because there's really nothing worth recapping. But I will say this. I think it's time that Carson Kressley and that other one with the high pitched voice, what's his name? Ross Matthew. Can y'all make them sashay? Y'all need to be Santino'd. It is time for y'all to go away. I feel like y'all have served y'all purpose. Y'all really don't have much to offer to the show anymore, especially Ross. So I think it's about time y'all bring in some new blood. And if people feeling away because the panel was too black, oh well, go argue with your mammy and go play with traffic. Go find the nearest ditch and jump. Because if y'all gonna sit up and get all mad over the panel being too black, then oh well, get over it. Because if it takes a bunch of black people to be delivering on the critique part and really breathing new life into this franchise, then that's what it needs to be. So give T.S. Madison a full-time gig over there. Give Laura Roach a full-time gig over there up against sitting with RuPaul and I guess the lame celebrity of the week. Although I will say this, I was living for Kate Beckinsale in that episode. So I'll give her that. And she was turning out with her comments. So I was living for, even though she got a new face, but overall, it was like I was living for the commentary. Now, to get into Aja, because I just want to give a little quick overall assessment of the recent episode before I go and give my critique on or just report on what Aja has been saying. So she has been reflecting on her gender journey, claiming that thousands of people unfollow her after she came out as a trans woman. The All-Star 10 Queen came out as trans in 2021, saying that she lived as non-binary since 2018 and have already begun to identify more with the feminine aspect of my identity. She also updated her pronouns to she and her. Now, in a Wednesday, May 14th interview with Pride, the ballroom performer explained that her most recent appearance in the franchise affirmed that she has a place in drag culture as a trans woman and not feel ashamed about it. Saying, quote, All Star 10 was the first time in my drag career that I felt like it was okay for me to be a trans woman and do drag successfully. But despite the strides she has made in the drag scene since coming out, it wasn't always easy. Saying, quote, quitting drag to navigate my trans identity came with a lot of pushback. I had people who no longer wanted to represent me or talk to me, and I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of supporters. Thousands and thousands of people unfollowed me on social media. A lot of false narratives started coming around, and it just became like a punchline. It became a joke. It was a lot of stuff that just completely not true. Drag Race changed my life when I went on it in season 9. I was in such a horrible situation before that, and it allowed me to not just blossom in life, but it changed. It created a bridge for me to be in a safe space, and I would never take that for granted. But at the same time, I was very grateful because I was able to keep a big portion of my fan base who was like, "We don't care. We love you for who you are in every stage and capacity." And I just feel so blessed and lucky because not everybody has that. And I do. I actually agree with uh that in a situation. It's like, you know what? I am definitely excited that you have someone who she had to go through all these different channels to come to terms with who she is as a person. I was the reason why I've been stalling is because I saw this situation on this thing where it was just like, oh, if you ever feel in a certain way about something, so yeah, let me post that. Um Let me post this thing so that way, and I think it's yeah, this. So there was like basically there's a trans lifeline hotline to speak to a trans non-binary peer operator with full anonymity and confidentiality. So I was seeing this in the article. So I was like, yeah, let me add that so that way if there is somebody out there who is going through it, being struggling with their gender identity and is feeling a way that you need to speak to someone on a trans lifeline, especially in this day and age where we have our current administration making a lot of cuts to a lot of things that could help out a lot of people who are struggling with their sexuality and their gender identity and things of that nature. Because we've been hearing a lot of our current administration doing that. So I just want to do my due diligence and put that out there. But as far as Aja goes, I'm just so proud of her that she's been able to kind of take the time to come into her own as a person. And people need to realize, it's like, yeah, I think maybe they haven't seen a lot of examples of this, but I thought even pre-drag race, I would see a lot of trans women who made a living performing as drag queens, and that was like a job. So I don't know, I would have to probably speak to people, but this is just my overall assumption of seeing these girls who would perform on these stages where it was kind of like the Dorian Corey era, where it was like, in the 90s and the 2000s, where it was like all about the glamour, the beads and the gowns and the big hair and just that sort of drag, where they would just get out there and they would perform their little numbers, and they would just be looking fierce and gorgeous, and the titties was sitting and everything. The curves was curving, and so we had all of that. But I guess because it's TV and a lot of these kids are of a different generation, they don't see that representation. So that's what they only go by what they know. And it's like, no, you can be trans, but also you can have a career as a drag queen, because doing drag is a profession. It's a job. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. But I do believe that there are people out there who are trans that probably use dressing up in the women's clothes as a way for them to play with gender and figure out who they are, and also maybe on a subconscious level they are using it in that way. But for the most part, I always look at it as like these, you know, they've been trans women who've been able to separate the two, and then there are some like Aja and so many others that we've heard from the drag race scene that feel like, a lot of people, they kind of shy away from it because there's this thing that is put upon them where it's just like the drag is sort of like, oh, they look at it as like some sort of hobby. It's not a real thing. And then they equate the transness with that. They're trying to say, oh, you're not really trans. You're not this, you're not that. But it's like sometimes it takes people to walk away from the thing that they do to realize that you can do both. And so I'm glad that Aja has come to that conclusion. And I'm just glad for her glow up. I'm glad for all the things that she's been out here doing, and she's out here living her best life. So shout out to you, sis. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story in regards to what Aja was talking about? I'm shocked, but then again, I'm not surprised that yeah, people would kind of not what is it? I guess I'm not surprised by that. People would just be like, oh, I don't want to follow this girl. I don't want nothing to do with her because she's coming out as trans. Because there are people out here, particularly not even just straights, but even people within our own community that are just so anti-trans, which I don't even understand that. Because no shade and quiet as it's kept, because I don't think it's spoken about enough. If it wasn't for trans people, a lot of you faggots running around would not have the rights that y'all have today, because it all stemmed from that brick going through the window during the Stonewall riots. So know your history and your education. Stop hating on the trans girls and the boys, but mostly the trans girls, because they're the ones that get more of the heat out of every other, I think, out of between the genders. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.